That question is so loaded, John. I don't even know where to start with that question. I guess the problem is, and by the way, John, I love that question.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. This is an interesting topic.
What's the solution here?
Show up, understand your part, and just crush it.
Pay-per-click, social media, we can talk about all this stuff, but what really matters is patient experience, that wow factor.
Startup Uncensored. The questions you have with the truths you need to hear. Now your hosts, Michael Dincio and John Bertagni.
All right, guys. Welcome to the show. As always, thanks for getting in and subscribing and listening to two yahoos that kind of are in the dental industry that love what we do and interview really great people. I'm your host, Michael Dincio, founder of Next Level Consultants, and of course, Mr. John Bertagni, my co-host. How you doing, John?
I'm doing great, Michael.
We've got a great guest today, man.
We do, and this is like, we constantly say there's foundational pieces to our show, in our interviewees, but this is actually one. This is, this could have been early on, but I think this is the right time to bring this piece in. And the only reason why it's early on is you got to set up that entity in order to get a loan. But, we're going into accounting. We've got Kevin Bray from Dental Accounting Pros. They're just studs. They do everything from soup to nuts, from an accounting, bookkeeping, tax perspective. I think they just give a good insight. We're going to primarily focus today on that bookkeeping piece, right? And really looking at those numbers on a month-to-month basis. And we're going to drill Kevin and ask some ridiculous questions on how some of these dentists just actually don't even know how their businesses are being run. My dad including. Like, he was horrible at books, accounting. So we're gonna follow the money today.
Follow the money, baby. So Kevin, with no further ado, welcome to the show, brother. Tell us a little bit about you and the firm in like a 2-minute elevator pitch.
2 minutes? What are you talking about?
All right, 30 seconds. Go.
Well, Michael, John, thanks for having me. So, like you said, Kevin Bray with Dental Accounting Pros. We're a bookkeeping and tax firm. We work with dentists across the country, and our foundation is really helping newer practice owners through the startup or transition setup process and help them understand their numbers. Of course, we work with practices at all stages of their careers, but we really enjoy the education piece, bringing people up to speed with how to understand the numbers side of their business, because delivering dentistry is one thing, but, dropping numbers in boxes and planning for the future is another.
Well, and Kevin, you bring up a good point, like bringing that information and educating. I would say most people and most businesses in general don't understand how to read a P&L and balance sheet. And so it's nothing against a dentist. Like I'm saying everyone cannot. But they're so important because it actually, it shows the heartbeat of the business itself, where there's profits, losses, where there's bleed out, potentially even where people are absconding money from your business. So, help me understand and why isn't there just someone that gives a report on a month-to-month basis and just drops it in their lap saying, hey, here's something to look at here? Or do you guys do that?
We do that, but we mostly work with consultants and the tax team when it gets to that part. We found that if you just send a report over, like you said, a lot of small business owners don't understand how to read a profit and loss. Debits and credits can be confusing to some people. But we like to put more visuals to it and put more storytelling to it. Like, we'll hop on a call and walk a doc through how to read a financial statement, but we love utilizing tools like Fathom HQ, which is a visualization tool that helps build reports to give a cash flow snapshot.
Yeah.
sending the reports is one thing, but following through with a team like Next Level, kind of walk through the numbers, that's really important. We found that just sending reports and emails, you look at it a couple times and you walk away. You don't really bring it to action.
Well, what's interesting is this. Sorry, Mike, that I'm just jumping in, but for some reason I'm like
on fire. On fire.
For some reason, I'm really into accounting today. I'm not sure why.
You never were before, but okay.
Almost end of the month. Come July, you're going to be posting and reconciling.
That's right.
No, but if you really think about it, like, here's the reality. Some of these startups, and because, I did M&A or selling practices, and I dabble in it now, but some people actually sell their practice after 2-3 years. Right. And they move on and build another one, or they move to another state. So getting your business in order, you're not thinking 30 years down the line like my dad did. You could actually be thinking 3 years, 5 years down the line that you want to turn this. Plus, banks now are requiring these updates on P&L and balance sheets on an ongoing basis more than ever.
Well, especially because of COVID.
Let me piggyback off of that. Hold on, Kevin. Let me piggyback off and throw it back to you. What I find with these startups, just with Dennis in general, but specifically for startups, they have nowhere to start. They don't know how the process works. They don't know what to expect. They're 30, 60 days out from opening. They know they need payroll. They've heard of this software called QuickBooks. They don't even know where to start. So, I guess big picture, what are the first steps of getting in to those softwares and getting them up and running so that they are prepared day one? Kevin, just kind of break down those first steps of how you get these guys prepped for what's to come in their first 30 days of business.
Definitely. And that's something that we shine in. We get involved, of course, during a transition. We love to get involved, especially about 30 days prior to closing or 30 to 60 days prior to opening. Because there's some pieces like payroll, for example, it's kind of an afterthought. I think a lot of owners think they can just open up an account, and put employees' names in and click, process. But there's some behind the scenes compliance pieces you have to get set up. Of course, before that, you need to have your business entity. So a lot of attorneys will set that up for clients. And each state's a little different. But here in Washington, you'll likely be a PLLC. And then from there, you go to the IRS website. It's a very simple form. Takes about 5 minutes to apply for an EIN number. So the business entity is taxed at a federal level. But then from there, you have to apply for a business license in your state. So like for Washington, for example, you really need to click that you have employees that you're going to be having, because that triggers an event behind the scenes to open up what's called L&I, a Labors and Industries Workers' Comp account. And that's crucial for payroll setup. And a lot of owners don't know that. So we get involved about 30 days prior. We get all of these headache compliance pieces set up, get the payroll onboarded. There's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes. We love using Gusto. It's a very streamlined platform for payroll.
Okay.
Everything's on the
cloud.
cloud.
Kevin, you do payroll, right?
So lately we've been having owners DIY their payroll with Gusto. Okay. It's a very streamlined platform. We will help educate on the front end and help with setup. And then owners are off to the races. It takes all of 5 minutes to set it up.
Yeah, because here's the thing, Kevin. We see a lot of times payroll companies, right, that are just hammering these new entities, ADP, and then, who knows? I mean, it's just constant paychecks where they're trying to do all these bolt-ons of value adds to the actual payroll. And the cost per employee can get insane. And everyone, all these add-ons seem beautiful from the get-go, but man, I got caught up in it. And then we went to an online piece, which was so much easier and so much cheaper to run that payroll. And also, the other piece that people have to keep in mind is sometimes you have to do off-period checks.
Off-cycle payrolls.
Yeah, dude. And that gets insane in the dollar amounts with some of these big boxes, where some of these onlines, they're a little bit more, nimble, and they don't charge you as much to do those sort of off cycles. What do you think?
It all adds up. And that's why we love Gusto. You can run as many payrolls as you want. It's just a flat fee per company, per employee or contractor. But going back to the payroll providers, it comes down to support and reports. Those are the two biggest factors that we want to see. So like ADP has great reports, Gusto has great reports, and support. There's some other providers out there where if something goes wrong, you're on like a chat support and you're talking to someone who doesn't even understand payroll sometimes. And that's a nightmare. I mean, sometimes you have to pull back a payroll. You entered an extra zero or something went wrong. It's going to a wrong bank account. And it's such a routine thing that can be such a headache because employees want to get paid on time. You don't pay an employee on time, all of a sudden it's one more reason why they want to go somewhere else, All
right. So we set up the EIN, we set up the payroll system, right? We have employees in. We're also in this bookkeeping piece, right? So now we're going to start getting into bookkeeping because we're getting supplies, we're getting, marketing going out the door. Tell me that process. What does that look like? Are you guys actually just looking into their bank account and seeing how these things are getting categorized? Are these guys sending you turbo scan, receipts? Tell me how, in your world, what you want that to look like. And what do you think?
Definitely. I think the accounting world has changed a lot in the last 10 years. There's a lot of buzzwords like cloud accounting that you hear now.
Yeah.
10 years ago, QuickBooks desktop, paper invoices, old school journal entering of payroll. Like when you process payroll, you'll have a list of debits and credits and manually entering that in. That has changed. Now QuickBooks Online is the standard. We sync it with bank and credit card accounts. So it brings in all those transactions automatically. Okay. We sync in Payroll Providers, so it maps in the journal entries. And there's some other third-party apps like HubDoc, for example. Receipt Bank is another one. You can take pictures on your phone, and it uploads it and categorizes it. HubDoc is a great feature we use for vendors.
Yep.
There's a unique URL email where you can ask the accounts receivable to email copies of invoices to that. So automatically you have this data in the cloud. And so if you ever get audited, that's a big time saver. So I don't know if you've been through an audit, but if you don't have your back office in order, it's a headache. So that's where we come in. I mean, we onboard docs all the time where one comes to mind, they were using an Excel spreadsheet, and another one, they weren't using a double entry accounting program. So it was only capturing some categories, but it wasn't really useful, come tax time.
Well, and that's one of the things that, dentists are notorious and small businesses are notorious for just running their lives through their business, which,
don't get me started.
I know. But I mean, it just happens.
I know.
And it's just a matter of keeping these things in check. Mm-hmm. And working with your bookkeeping / accounting firm so that everything is categorized correctly. And let me explain. It's not only from a tax perspective, right? Mm-hmm. It's also if you ever want to transition your business.
Exactly.
All of these monies show lack of profitability if you're buying everything for your home and,
Well, John, it's not only that. If a prospective buyer with, a good consultant or CPA worth their salt is looking at the financials in detail, they'll see the garbage in there. Yep. And all of a sudden, they don't have faith in the deal because they look at all the bookkeeping records the past 3 years and they've been running their personal life through it. And then they don't trust that you're running a squeaky clean operation.
Well, and that's where you do need to, hire a reputable firm
Exactly.
to do the ad backs and things like that.
Mhm.
But that's for another show. But bottom line is you need someone to keep those categories right, and you need someone that you can touch and feel and talk to get these things on an ongoing basis. And even if there's a huge red flag from a bookkeeping standpoint, it doesn't go all the way to the end of the year and come tax time to say, hey, we've been doing this wrong for 9 months. Um, that's why bookkeeping is so darn important.
It's really the foundation.
Yeah.
If you don't have good books, you can't give good. Bad input equals bad output. You need a good scorecard to really give advisory on how the business is operating.
Yeah. So from your standpoint, the payroll system, whether it's the online piece or the ADP, the banking piece, should dentists feel concerned that you guys are absolutely looking under the covers and have access to all of this information, and kind of talk about that security piece, how you guys work so that people don't feel weird that, you have access to their bank account, you have access to their payroll, all that kind of stuff.
Definitely. So we get third party access most times when we can, and people worrying about online banking, that has changed a lot. I think 10 years ago, people were very skeptical, but
Yeah, because
now,
you just give them permissions, right?
right. Now it's kind of the norm. You have all the apps on your phone for all your banks. You expect it almost to be all online and sync.
Yeah.
So we have some protocols in place behind the scenes. We don't give too much access to just one individual, for example, and just checks and balances. That's really the safeguard of all small business. Don't put too much responsibility in the hands of one person.
Well, that's true. And the bottom line is, Kevin, you're not writing checks.
No, a lot of times bill pay has changed too. We still do bill pay, but we use like bill.com. The doc
Okay.
logs in and approves the bills. So it's not necessarily, we don't have full control of every single piece.
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So tell me a little bit more about how, who are you dealing with typically at a dental practice? Are you dealing with the dentist owner, office manager? How does that, what are you seeing, especially in startups? And then also that transition when it does go to an office manager who's doing the payroll and, doing some other aspects of the business. Tell me what that might look like for our listeners.
Definitely. I'd say 80 to 90% of the time we're dealing with owners. So the owner doc.
Yep.
We work with the office managers too. It just depends to what degree they're involved in managing the business. If we're, for example, giving weekly deposit reports, which is part of our EFT recon process, our team members are in contact with the office managers quite often.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, the team at a dental office, a question comes up, like a payroll tax question or, excise tax question, and they reach out to us. So we're not just a resource for the owner. We're a resource for their business. We're a sounding board for anything accounting, payroll, tax compliance.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I mean, that's the interesting piece is, these dentists, they'll get 941 for, payments that they'll have to do. They'll get things from the state where they need to, just constant data sets that are coming from an accounting standpoint, from a banking standpoint. What you're saying, Kevin, is this information can get passed on to you, especially, the amount that comes from the state, from the federal, from, banking perspectives. You're going to be able to say, hey, this is what we're doing here. This is how we're going to do this. This is what we're, from a tax planning standpoint, from a bookkeeping standpoint, do you guys dive into all that and help your customers, or is it just compartmentalized into we're your bookkeeper, we're your accounting firm, etc.?
Anything compliance, bookkeeping, tax planning, that's really our foundation. Business mechanics, we're not a financial planner.
No.
We're not an in-office consultant. That's not what we do.
Yeah.
We really just focus on the numbers side and streamlining archaic, older business systems. Like, we don't paper file or e-file 941s anymore. We get docs set up on a full service payroll platform. So that's just taken care of. It's just one less thing to worry about.
Well, and honestly, Kevin, that's what I was hoping you would say. And truly, from a viewership and listeners and follower standpoint, get with a firm that does full service and really almost puts it on auto magic, where you don't have to be dinking around with this stuff on a day-to-day basis. There's so much that's going on from from a startup, but also, mature business, that trying to figure this stuff out on your own or having your, sister-in-law do it, it's only going to result in problems. Getting a firm like Dental Accounting Pros, which, by the way, I don't even know how you got that name. Like, how
keywords. We went with the most generic sounding keywords possible.
When? Back in like 1842? Like, how did you grab that? That's so ridiculous.
We'll rebrand at some point to some catchy 2-syllable tech word, but for now, it's Dental Accounting Pros.
It's unbelievable. But yeah, just use a firm that understands the whole business, and then let them take you to the the promised land, which is profitability and making sure you understand where the money's flowing. You got to be profitable. That's the main thing. All right. Well, Kevin, this was exactly what we wanted from a foundational standpoint, and we keep on saying that throughout this showgram here, that it's so important to work with individuals that know what the hell they're doing and they have your back. And so finding trusted partners, that's the key in starting a small business. Don't go for the cheapest, don't go for the most expensive, go for the perfect fit for what you're trying to do. And they'll bring you to that, a place that you feel comfortable. And Dental Accounting Pros, national footprint. Kevin's information is going to be here on our on the site. It's also seen below if you're watching. But Kevin Bray, I can't thank you enough for being a part of this. This was exactly what we were looking for, my man.
John, Mike, thanks for having me. Look forward to working with you guys more in the future.
Love it, man. Thank you.
Talk soon.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next week for another truth-filled episode of Startup Uncensored. Check out Startup Uncensored on Facebook and YouTube. Click like, subscribe, and interact with Michael and John.